Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Adam Boyer Show. Today we have one of my very favorite things to do on the show, and that is interviewing other interesting people. And today we're doing just that. I'm going to be talking to Brad Driskill, an Appomattox County conservative activist. It's going to be a great time. We're going to be discussing the Trump and, among other things, we'll be discussing the Trump versus DeSantis race, since that's really what the 2024 primary is going to come down to. Obviously, we know what side I'm coming from. Brad's coming from the Trump camp. It's going to be a great time. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the Adam Boyer Show.
In a world gone crazy, common sense, logic, and Christian values are Adam Boyer is here to provide you all three in the Adam Boyer Show.
Okay, folks, here we are. Brad, thanks for coming on the show. Greatly appreciated. Give me a great time.
It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, it's going to be a great time. We're going to jump right into it. So, I'll give you a little bit about Brad's background, then I'll ask him for some as well. He's been very active in local Appomattox politics. I'm in Gladys in Campbell County, so I'm not right next to, I'm not directly involved with all the same stuff he is, but we've worked on a couple of the same races. He volunteered and was involved with Tom Garrett, who is now a Republican nominee for delegate in House District 56, and he's been involved in other various local conventions and mass meetings and stuff. And yeah, so we're going to jump right in. So Brad, before we get started with any of the actual questions, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to be involved in Appomattox politics, and what it is you do, etc.
Well, Adam, it really started in 2020 when Governor Northam decided to abuse his power and shut down the state and so forth. I was tired of seeing our freedoms being stripped away right from under us. It all started with a joke one day during the pandemic. I was walking down my driveway, agitated that other businesses and attractions and all that stuff we used to get involved with were following this unconstitutional mandate from Governor Northam, and I was just so mad one day. I ran it, went on Facebook while pacing my driveway, and I said on Facebook, and I quote, "Just admit it. You'd rather have me as your governor right now." A lot of people liked it. Next day at church, someone I know came up to me and said, "Hey, Governor," and that stuck with me for a little while. So I was like, maybe I should run for governor. I was thinking about it, but then I figured maybe start off small. And
yeah, right.
I was thinking to run for the Board of Supervisors or either the school board. And then one time later, one of my good friends, who is the youth director at my church, and he's on my Campbell County supervisor, my good friend Matt Klein, was suggesting that I would get involved with the Appomattox Republican Committee, which was under Christian Raymond at the time, who was serving as chair. And I did get involved around September 2020. I became a member then, and I am currently a member now, but I am serving as vice treasurer of the committee right now. But before I go any farther, another thing that got me involved, too, was the immorality from our disgraced former Congressman Denver Riggleman with his same-sex wedding. And it was something we couldn't let go. I mean, we had to hold our leaders accountable to stand by God, the Bible, and the Constitution, and I had enough of it. That's one reason I got out and got involved, and thank God we have Bob Good as our congressman today and got rid of Denver Riggleman, who decided now he wants to help our crackhead friend Hunter Biden.
Yeah. So for those who are not aware, Denver Riggleman in 2020, that's what played a big role in getting a grassroots movement to oust him, as he officiated the same-sex marriage. He was, as we've learned now, after serving on the January 6th committee and all that, and he's not only full of himself, but he's also a Republican in name only. And so that's what, back in 2020, got us started with my Uncle Rick, actually, who I still hope to have on the show to talk about his book. He has recruited a lot of people to run for things in the past, and he recruited Bob Good, who had formerly served on the Campbell County Board of Supervisors, to run for Congress. And it was a drive-through convention in 2020 because of the COVID restrictions, but Bob won that with, I think, about 53% of the vote, if I remember correctly. And so
I think it was 58%, if I'm not mistaken, Adam.
Yeah.
I think it was 58. I could be wrong.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah, I knew it was
41%
50-something.
Denver, I think.
Right. So Yeah, it was somewhere in the 50s, but it was a good showing. And then he ended up going on to defeat Cameron Webb in the general election. In 2022, he won re-election by 20 points. He's very popular, and in my opinion, being completely unbiased, one of the best congressmen in the nation. So that's the background there. And so yeah, that's a little bit of background about that. And I just thought I'd add that in there. So Brad, if you have anything else to contribute as to how you got involved in politics or any of your background, you can go ahead, or we'll move on to the next question if you're ready.
Well, I mean, as you know, Adam, I just wanted to add one thing. Earlier this year, I started being a guest contributor for a very well-known political website called The Bull Elephant, and I have some articles out there to date. And yes, and since we're going to be talking later about the issue between Trump and DeSantis, I did write an article in support of Trump. So if anybody, whether you support him or not, wants to check it out, it is on The Bull Elephant, along with other articles. And so yes, so I contributed to The Bull Elephant, and that's another contribution to my politics, pretty much.
Yeah, and I'll make sure the Bull Elephant is linked below in the show notes wherever you're watching this. If it's on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, wherever, I'll make sure it's linked to where you can go check out the Bull Elephant. So, Brad, I'm just going to ask, because the Trump and DeSantis obviously is the meat of what we're talking about, but I just want to ask some more generic questions, kind of get into it. So, what do you think is the current state of Virginia politics right now, Virginia specifically? Do you think the state as a whole is heading in a positive direction, a negative direction, or kind of somewhere in between?
Be honest with you, Adam, I think I have mixed reactions with it because well, it's no secret we need to work to retain the House and we need to get back the Senate. But however, I really do feel like the recent primaries we just had here a few weeks ago was a major flop. We had good, solid conservative candidates come to the platform, such as Matt Strickland, Hermie Sadler, and Amanda Chase, and so forth. But it seems like a lot of people chose the establishment over good, solid conservatives. And one issue that really hits for me and coming into 2024, and I think for many other conservatives as well, is the issue of abortion. We're not willing to settle for Governor Youngkin's 15 to 20 week abortion bill. We want a life of conception bill that protects all life, right at conception, the moment God forms the life in the womb. And we need to put the pressure on these establishment candidates that are coming into the race, let them know, look, we want to win just as much as you do, but we're not willing to compromise. We got to find common ground on this issue because, I mean, winning is one thing, Adam, but we cannot compromise one bit. I mean, or winning is pointless as far as I'm concerned. So it all boils down to the issue. We're willing to come together. So we'll see come November, I reckon.
One of the things Michael Knowles always says is he's a very good political host for the Daily Wire. One thing he always says is you have to offer people a choice, not an echo. And the establishment Republicans, what they offer to people a lot of the time is an echo between that of them and a Democrat. You know, it's been said Republicans are liberals driving the speed limit. And so I definitely agree. I think Ron DeSantis, actually, if we're talking about just his governor term, I think he's a great example of that in Florida. He went from winning Florida by 0.5%. I don't think it was even that much. It was, 20,000, couple 100,000 maybe votes. I knew it was within 1% in 2018 that he won Florida goes to winning it by 20 points this year. So I think that's a good example of people don't want compromise. And I think if we take back the Senate, if Governor Youngkin would really put his foot down, pedal to the metal, and he would if he would really become more of a hard right, I'll use the term, of a candidate and a governor, I think you would see his popularity go up, not down. He's a very popular governor as is, based on all the polls, but he has not accomplished a whole lot as governor. So that's definitely something I agree with there. So, moving on, Virginia has an election every year. I've heard it said they're unlucky enough to have an election every year. I think we in New Jersey are the only ones with off-year elections. And so this year, obviously, most of the focus is on the House and Senate. And with that, which races are you, Brad, watching most closely heading into this November?
Well, first off, as most people know, and for those that don't know, Appomattox County, which I live in, is in House District 56 and Senate District 10. And I will say thank God that we're a solid red districts, and that we will have a Senator John McGuire, and we will have a Delegate Tom Garrett come this November. However, one race that I'm looking really closely at right now is actually in your district. I'm in House District 51, which is next door to Appomattox County, and that's the race between Eric Zier, the Republican nominee, and basically independent incumbent Matt Ferris. And I feel like that is one. I feel like now that Matt Ferris has decided to jump in independently and decided to run again, I feel like it's going to be one to watch. And I'm hoping and praying that Eric Zier will pull off a victory. I feel like he has a good chance. He's got a lot of support, even from our congressman, and as well as I. And again, recently wrote an article to him in the Bull Elephant, trying to help him out. So, yeah, that's one I will definitely be keeping all my eyes on, pretty much. And I hope that people in your district will get out and show support. I mean, and when election time comes, and I feel like we will have an early election season like it has been since COVID, but whenever you vote, whether it be election day or during the so-called election season, get out there and vote for Eric Zier. We need him in the House of Delegates. He is a Christian conservative that will not compromise our values, and he is the one who we need to help pass this life at conception bill and get it at Governor Youngkin's desk 2024.
And that's one thing Eric has committed to, is introducing a life from conception bill on day one. So, a lot of that, where it goes, we'll see, do we get good Republicans in the House, and does it get out of committee, and then do we take over the Senate? So, there's a lot that's riding on this year, too, because if we're being completely honest, it is unlikely that we win the governorship in back-to-back elections, just because of the way Virginia politics works. So this is our chance to take back the House and the Senate and still have the governorship. And if we can't do it in 2023, it might be a long time, if ever, that Republicans completely gain control of the Virginia legislature again and the statewide offices like governor, LG, and attorney general. So, obviously, elephant in the room, one of the main differences between me and you is that Trump, obviously, I'm a DeSantis supporter for 2024, while you're for Trump, and so there's a lot of opposing viewpoints, and people like the two candidates for different reasons. But I'll let you go ahead and start. Basically, just why you're supporting Trump for 2024.
Well, Adam, it really boils down to what he has done for our nation since he took office in his one term alone. And again, I will state this before I start. While I strongly disagree with him on his view of abortion, that we should have exceptions of rape and incest, why would I, a guy who is pro-life, support him? And I believe in no exceptions. I'm supporting him because of what he has done, helping get the 3 Supreme Court justices installed, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and the other guy, Gorsuch, if I'm not mistaken. So he helped get them in, and last year, because of that, thank God, on a federal level, we overturned Roe v. Wade. Now it's back to the states. It's back to the states, and now it's up to us, we the people, to elect good candidates and pressure our governors to sign a life of conception bill. It's up to us now. So I give Trump credit where it's due on that, and I have to give, I don't like Mitch McConnell credit as far as blocking Merrick Garland from getting installed. Obama's pick, because I don't think we'd have had the opportunity even then. So just had to throw that out there. Another reason is, as a Christian conservative, I admire Trump for recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which many do not know is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And many presidents prior to him, I believe Clinton, Bush, and Obama, have all made a promise that they would have done that, and they have failed to keep that promise. Trump made a promise he would do it. He kept it, and I can say a promise made, promise kept in this scenario. And another one is, it's no secret that when Obama was in office, Kim Jong-un, was trampling all over our country. He wanted to, he was talking smack about destroying our country, and I mean, he wasn't scared of us then. He wasn't scared. We had a weak leader. Trump comes in. He comes in and he's a negotiator. He can negotiate with our enemies without compromise. He did just that with Kim Jong Un, and I feel like that's who we need in office right now, is a negotiator with our enemies. I mean, one that will not compromise, but we can make peace with our enemies, is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like with leadership like that, it's been proven, and that's the kind of direction we need to go in. Well, and may I add one more thing as well? Since the time he announced his candidacy for 2016, and even till today, he's what's the right word I'm looking for? He's exposed a lot of the swamp. He's exposed true colors of many whom we thought we could trust. And that's someone we need, because you can't trust a lot of people today, Adam. You just can't, no matter whose side you're on.
Yeah. So what one of my problems with Trump, actually, and I'll harken back to what you're saying about him exposing some of the people in the swamp, is it's true that he did. But at the same time, he left a lot of people in office, as Ken Cuccinelli has pointed out, that really were working against him actively. I mean, the FBI, that we now know for sure was working with the Clinton campaign to take him down in 2016. He did not drain the swamp or really clean house or anything like that in the FBI. They were working against him for his whole presidency. And then, of course, the most glaring example would be in 2020, when he virtually turned the country over to Dr. Fauci, and we were listening to his lies and his deceit for guidance, or at least the states were, a lot of the states, and then there was the difference between the states that were locked down and continued to listen to Fauci, who obviously worked at Trump's pleasure, and there's a glaring difference between that and then states like South Dakota or Florida, where both had some. I don't remember if South Dakota had any restrictions at all, but if they did, it was very few. With Florida, it was near the very beginning of the pandemic that they had restrictions, but it was not very far into it that Ron DeSantis then decided to lift the restrictions, and he received a lot of flack for that from the left. So that's one of the reasons. The COVID thing was a big reason for me why I don't trust Trump anymore, and why I am on to DeSantis. And another one of the big reasons is simply, both in policy and beliefs, Trump is really not that conservative. He is a Republican, and he is far more commonsensical than a lot of the moderate Republicans or the left, but he's really not a far-right guy like the media would have you believe. DeSantis is a lot more conservative than Trump on almost every issue you can think of, and including a couple of the big ones. For instance, abortion. In Florida, DeSantis signed a 15-week ban into effect, and then on the heels of that, not very long afterwards, they kept working toward it. He then signed a 6-week ban into abortion ban into law in Florida, and I'd imagine they're probably working toward a total ban. I don't know that for a fact, but that would seem to be the direction this is going. And Trump is largely quiet on the issue. The Susan B. Anthony organization, they're a big pro-life organization, called, and this is an article from June 27th of this year, they called Trump's stance a, quote, morally indefensible position for a self-proclaimed pro-life presidential candidate, because he's kind of been waffling back and forth as to whether or not he'll support any restrictions on abortion at all on a federal level. And I think DeSantis will absolutely, I don't know that he'll ban it on a federal level completely, but I know he will at least support restrictions on the federal level. Well, I think Trump is much more going to be leave it to the states, because that's what the Supreme Court said, which is well and good, and I do give Trump credit for the Supreme Court justices, but I also think, should DeSantis get the opportunity, he'll appoint people to the Supreme Court that are just as good, if not better. Another thing I have as far as policy goes, and DeSantis being more conservative than Trump, is on arguably the biggest issue facing the country, in my opinion, today, and that's the threat of transgenderism. The DeSantis campaign recently excuse me, put out a really great ad recently contrasting Trump and his willingness to accept and work alongside the LGBTQ community, and DeSantis actively working to put an end to the ideology in public life, particularly in schools. We've obviously have the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill, as the left likes to call it, and then removing stuff like woke indoctrination from colleges, and just working in generally to put a lot of restrictions on the transgenderism in general. And certainly I would agree with Michael Knowles again when he said we need to eradicate that from public life, and I completely agree with that. And Trump has been in the past more than willing to work with that community if he thinks it's going to garner him votes. There's a lot of clips of him talking about how not necessarily how he supports them, basically he doesn't see them as a problem. And so those are a couple things that really come into effect for me as to why I'm supporting DeSantis over Trump. But I'll go ahead and give the floor back to you.
Well, Adam, everything you said, I do agree with you on most everything. Now, as far as COVID is concerned, I mean, I agree with you. That's the one big mistake Trump did was put Dr. Fauci in charge. When he was leaving office prior to President Biden coming into play, he fired a lot of people. He pardoned a lot of people. But why the heck did he not fire DeSantis? To this day, I will not. I'm sorry, not DeSantis, Dr. Fauci. Sorry, no. Don't get me wrong. Why did he not fire Dr. Fauci? That is one that I will not understand to this day. Now, and that's another thing I want to make clear again. It's about what he has done. I look at what he has done on the federal level as president, because I disagreed with a lot of his endorsements. I have disagreed with a lot of people he has put in office. I mean, at one point when he won the presidency, he was considering putting Mitt Romney in office, and a lot of us were like, in his cabinet, I'm like, what the heck are you thinking, dude? I mean, look how he did you and all. I mean, sometimes I want to, and another thing I want to mention is the whole debacle with Kevin McCarthy becoming House Speaker. He endorsed Kevin McCarthy. Our Congressman Bob Good stood at his ground and opposed it. But I would like to believe he did that because he was trying to get Kevin McCarthy to help him out when he announced his run in 2024 and would help him with maybe an endorsement or getting the word out to help him win, but I'm not sure. And again, Kevin McCarthy is part of the swamp, I believe. He is one of those that would rear end Trump in a heartbeat, and I'll never understand that either. And there's another thing I will point out as far as DeSantis is concerned. I agree. I feel like if you're comparing him and Trump on the whole pandemic issue, while it was a lot of time of uncertainty among everybody, including state and federal leaders, I felt like Ron DeSantis handled that a whole lot better than Trump did. But now it looks like, hopefully, I can't speak for Trump and I can't speak for DeSantis, but hopefully with the pandemic pretty much behind us all right now, I hope that Trump has learned his lesson on how to handle situations better. Now, there's things Trump needs to work on, I will say that, and hopefully he will actually start listening to his constituents. I mean, those that put him in office, his supporters and all that. I've been one of them. I mean, I'll point out in a heartbeat anything that Trump has done wrong. I'll call him out for it, and I did when he was president. And DeSantis has done a lot of good for Florida, and as far as I'm concerned, he is probably the best governor in the nation, way better than our Governor Youngkin. I just feel like, in my personal opinion, my thing about DeSantis is I think that right now is not his time. I think that 2028 would be a better time for him to come out. Of course, when we get to the debate stage and when he's going out and about meeting people, I mean, hopefully he can build a bond with everyone in the nation besides Florida. And I think he can do that, but I just believe that it's not his time. And I feel like that regardless, because I will say this, I'll point this out. We know for a fact that two people on the platform right now are going to be the nominee. It's either going to be Donald Trump or it's going to be Ron DeSantis. It's going to be one and two. I'm willing to bet my last dollar on that. Yeah. However, who is the right one in this case? And I believe it's Trump. You believe it's DeSantis. Now, yes, I will say this. If DeSantis does win the nomination, I will back him 100%, give him my endorsement, and do all I can to help him win, because we got to get Biden and crazy Kamala out of office. We got to. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, again, another reservation I have with DeSantis, and this is just how I feel. I could be wrong on this. I mean, this is just my opinion, not fact, but it makes me skeptical of who is in the background behind the scenes supporting DeSantis. I mean, I have concerns that a lot of the establishment is behind him and becoming like the Trojan horse to get him in, like the Bushes, Paul Ryan, and so forth. I mean, that group. I could be wrong, but that's just a concern I have as going forward. I'm sure we'll see everybody's character revealed on the debate stage, and we'll just have to go from there. I mean, right now, again, it's going to be DeSantis or it's going to be Trump. Everyone else is just either trying to get a vice presidential spot or they're trying to get a spot on the presidential cabinet. Except for Chris Christie, we know he's just there just to run his mouth and try to make Trump look
I
good.
don't know, Chris Christie. He might get the nomination. You never know. Chris Christie might be in for the win. So what I was gonna say is, don't you feel like though probably? I mean, I think certainly because we know. I mean, you compare the Asa Hutchinsons of the world, the Arkansas governor, who's also running for president, to Ron DeSantis. And we know Asa Hutchinson's the establishment, Ron DeSantis is not. So don't you think probably the establishment backing Ron DeSantis is much more... I feel like my thought is certainly that this is not DeSantis' fault. It is a liability, I think, that the establishment is backing him. But I think it's much more that the establishment's backing him, not because they like him as much as it is that they hate Trump. And DeSantis is just the closest shot they have to getting Trump out in the nomination. So what I think is that is a weight DeSantis has to carry and their campaign has to fight through. But I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just the fact that DeSantis is not Trump, that he has the establishment backing him, as opposed to DeSantis is an establishment figure who are backing him. I think that's much more the reason there. And so that's how I address that. I really am not concerned as to the establishment backing DeSantis. One of my other points with him is electability, and obviously in 2020 we know, and now we're allowed to say it on YouTube now. If this is up on Facebook, I don't know, but we're allowed to say it on YouTube now because their policy, the 2020 election, was not legit. We all know that, and I do believe Trump won in 2020, and I do believe Trump won in 2020, but I do not know if he will win an election against Biden, and that's for this reason. I do think he won in 2020, but the problem was the key swing states such as Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, they were all close enough to steal, which is the problem. For a race to steal, you have to be within a maximum of within 2 points, especially if it's like a statewide election. You pretty much need an election to be within that 51 to 49 range. If it's a 55-45 victory for one candidate, you can't plausibly steal that. And that was a problem, is I do think Trump won Wisconsin. I think he won Arizona. I think he won Georgia. But those states were all very close, and regardless of what happened in the 2020 election, is he did again lose the popular vote, which I'm not stuck on because that's why we have the Electoral College. But it is a pretty decent point that the Democrats did a better job of getting out the vote. They did a better job of motivating their voters, which is something Trump is supposed to be really good at. And as of the last couple of years, he has not been anywhere near as much. He's much more of a motivator for Democrats at this point, and we've seen that play off really in the 2022 midterms. Look at Georgia, for example. You have Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams. Kemp kind of distanced himself from Trump, but he also ran as a conservative, and he won big time. Trump was campaigning for, he endorsed Herschel Walker, and Herschel Walker should have beaten Raphael Warnock, and he didn't. And Kemp had a really big victory over Abrams, too, and Walker lost to Warnock in the runoff and in the regular election. He lost, and he shouldn't have. And I think that's just one example of Trump's endorsement. And I'm not saying this as a knock against Trump as much as I am. It's just the kind of guy that he is now, and he's losing some of his charm, I think, for a lot of Republican voters, which is why you see a lot of people going to DeSantis, and he's still a really big motivator for Democrats. They will vote for whoever. They will vote for Joe Biden if he has a broken hip and his brain physically is not working, he can't even speak. They will vote for him because he is not Trump, and we saw that and heard that from a lot of people in 2020, that they're voting for Biden just because he's not Trump. And I don't think you're going to get anywhere near as much of that with DeSantis, and I think because of that, he can also rally independents to him. And like it or not, independents are a very large part of the voting population of the U.S. now, and I think that's something you really have to do, and I think he can be capable of winning the swing states by 6, 7, or more points. Whereas I think Trump, I think he would legitimately, I think probably Trump would barely legitimately beat Biden. But I think it will be, if he gets the nomination and runs in 2024, it'll be an exact repeat of what happened in 2020, other than in a couple states like maybe Georgia, where they've put some laws into place to prevent that. But I think even then, Trump will lose the election in 2024, possibly legitimately, and it will definitely be close enough for him to lose illegitimately.
Well, I see a lot of the points you're making there, especially with 2022, but I feel like there was a lot more that factored in besides Trump's endorsements and all. I mean, I understand the one with Georgia. I mean, how Kemp won big and so forth, and Warnock won against Walker. However, I mean, there are a couple states that, with exception, I do believe are not legitimate. Arizona, obviously, and I even question Pennsylvania because, I mean, like Joe Biden, who in their right mind would vote for a brain-dead fellow like John Fetterman? I mean, Dr. Oz, I mean, I'll be straightforward. I disagree with Trump endorsing Dr. Oz. I feel like Miss Kathy Barnett would have been a better choice at the time, but either way, we'd have been better off with a Dr. Oz in the Senate than we would John Fetterman. And another thing, another two issues I think that hit close, I mean, was Kansas. Now, Kansas, I felt like I predicted it was going to be a toss-up or either go red finally because Kansas seems to be a red state. But however, I felt like since they put the abortion issue up for vote and a lot of the people chose to keep abortion in Kansas, I feel like a lot of the people selfishly think it's okay to have that right to murder a baby, so they felt the need to vote Democrat because any Republican there would prevent the justice for unborn life. That was one particular issue I looked at in 2022. And another one was, which thank God the Supreme Court just struck down the other day, is the whole student loan or student debt forgiveness, which Biden was crusading for. I believe Biden was using these poor young millennials and so forth that believe they're entitled to have their college paid for free of charge. Another act of socialism. I believe that Biden was just trying to buy the votes so he can get more Democrats in the House and in the Senate, and succeeded at that. And then when it came time to get down to business, it was like, oh, I mean, I can't do this for you. I mean, but now he knows another election season's coming here at 2024, and he tries to do it again. Thank God the Supreme Court struck it down, and now he's saying the fight ain't over. Well, at this point, he's got a hopeless fight if he thinks he's going to fight the Supreme Court of the land. I mean, good luck with that is all I got to say to Joe. Another thing, too, and like I said earlier, it's going to be DeSantis as the nominee, or it's going to be Donald Trump. We can bet our last dollar on that. However, I feel like regardless whether DeSantis is the nominee or Trump is the nominee, I feel like in the end, when all's said and done, it would be wise for both Trump and DeSantis to team up. Whether one or the other becomes vice presidential pick, I'm not sure. But, I mean, I feel like both sides, I mean, especially those that do not like Trump, I mean, but love DeSantis, can get on board with. I mean, they'll see a true display of unity for the country and realize, look, they're working together. I mean, hey, this is all or nothing. Now, as far as Democrats, yeah, they'll do anything to get after Trump and take him down. They do not like him. They don't like truth. They don't care about the facts. As far as the independents are concerned, I mean, I can see DeSantis personally garnering a lot of the independent vote, maybe even the libertarian vote. I feel like, I mean, if these two team up, Trump and DeSantis, we might have something going on. But again, only time will tell. And again, it sounds good on paper, but when you actually put it forth into action, what's the results going to be? I'm not sure. And again, I said I will support DeSantis if he wins, definitely, most definitely. But I'm going with Trump just because of what he has done and his expertise. Each candidate, even those that are not Trump or DeSantis, have their pros and they have their cons, their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, sometimes you just got to weigh out what the strengths are and what the weaknesses are. Trump, being a businessman for most of his life, he's basically understood how business works, and I have to go with the businessman over the governor in this case. But again, Adam, we'll just have to see. And all I will say is, when we get to the debate stage, it's going to get very interesting, needless to say. So I'll be having the popcorn ready, most definitely. It's possible. Right now, I've considered it, but right now, I just feel like being with my family is more important right now than running for any public office. And I also feel like the good Lord is keeping me in the GOP and even writing articles to educate the voters on who is good and who is not, and what is right and what is wrong. That's where he wants me right now, and that's what I'm working towards now, just helping good people get elected, and that the truth of Almighty God gets out to the public. And because we know one thing is that the truth will set you free, and that's my goal right now. But it's definitely something I'm considering, Board of Supervisors or school board here in Appomattox. But it will not be easy if I ever decide to, because one problem with Appomattox is they're ran by the Good Old Boy Network, and they do not like people like you and me, Adam. They're all for power over, should I say, what's right for the people and what's right for the community. And that's the problem we have now. They vote with us in the federal and statewide elections, but however, they're all power hungry. And hopefully one day we can change that and put a sense of morals into the community. And we got a battle right now going on with the whole library situation right now with the LGBT books put on our kids, and I feel like the battle on that is far from over. So that's another thing I'm crusading right now, is for our children's welfare, and including mine. I mean, I don't want my son being raised in a community that's okay to accept something that God deems immoral, that he destroyed a city of Sodom and Gomorrah over. I mean, the fight's not over yet, Adam, and I'm going to keep fighting until the Lord calls me home. I mean, that I can rest assured to everybody that I will continue to do.
Well, everyone, thank you again for watching. I thank Brad for coming on. I do thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. We're trying to grow the show, reach more people, and spread the word, the conservative word, flip Democrats into Republicans, cure people of the liberal pathogen, however you want to put it, encourage those who are already on the right side of history and are voting Republican and are conservative and are fighting for our values here in America. And thank you, folks, for watching. I do appreciate it. You can check out, there should be some cards on the screen, maybe my interview with Eric Zare. He mentioned that. You can check out the Bull Elephant, where Brad writes for them. They're a great news article source. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe. There should be a button for that as well. As always, folks, I'm Adam Boyer. This is The Adam Boyer Show. Thanks for watching.